And we are live. Hi. Hey,
Hi, how
ladies.
are you?
Welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Wedderburn, and I'm here today with my beautiful co host, Tracy Collins, and our amazing guest, Suki. We are here to talk to you a little bit more about the Move to Mexico conference, which is happening on November the 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for anyone who is watching it now or possibly on the replay. But what we're trying to do is introduce all of our speakers at some point between now and the conference. So you have a little bit of information, a little bit more about who they are, what their background is, what their experience is in terms of moving to Mexico. We are very excited to bring so much information to you all during that weekend that will help you from the comfort of your home. I'm going to emphasize that. Really understand what it takes to move here, give you experiences from people who've done it already, the immigrants that are here, the expats, however we want to call ourselves, but also people that are born and raised and live in Mexico. So this is very much a wide plethora of knowledge and experience, literally for a fraction of what it would cost you to hire each of us individually for help. So just keep that in mind. I'm Michelle Wedderburn. I am the owner of Casa Elm, which is a guest house space in San Miguel de Allende. I am in central Mexico, and I have lived here for over 6 years, and I absolutely love what I do. I help people with relocation, but I also like helping people connect to the things that they need. So join us on that date, and I'm going to pass it over to Tracy, my co host.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here for the Move to Mexico conference. We are excited today to bring Suki to you, and she's in Oaxaca, which is one of my top destination at this point. But I am here in San Miguel de Allende. Also, I moved a year ago, and I work with women in business strategy and development, and so I am excited to share this information with you. The conference is going to be amazing and it's going to be loaded with information and relevant information for 2024/2025, which you need to move abroad to Mexico specifically and do it the correct, most efficient way. So without further ado, Suki, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in Oaxaca.
Okay, well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I think this is so important. When I first started moving around, I needed a how to. I didn't have it, and I made a whole lot of mistakes. So I talk to people, and I seem like I have a lot of stories to tell. Not a good thing. You're here because you don't want to have the stories to tell, and I don't want you to have to spend the zeros that I spent for the stories. So I am in Oaxaca, 4 years here. In Oaxaca, I own La Soley Boutique Hotel. So a few years ago, I embarked on an interesting project of buying a space and gutting it and renovating it because I've watched too much HGTV. And in my heart and soul, I said, yes, why not? So here, 4 years later, the space is actually what we envisioned. So we have 4 apartments for guests. We do a full concierge service. So I basically give what I always wanted in traveling. Like we take care of everything for you. We take your laundry for you, call your taxi for you. I'm organizing someone's wedding anniversary next week. So we kind of like, I feel like I'm like Rourke Fantasy Island, right? Like you call me and you're like, I'm coming to Oaxaca. And I'm like, talk to me. What do you want to do? And then we just work it out. So very, very individual experiences is what we try to create for our guests. And to that end, I will be talking specifically about cost of living in at least my part of Mexico. So I will talk specifically about Oaxaca, and I will talk in general cost of living concepts. So there'll be 2 different parts to my talk. And what I will do for you, ladies and gentlemen, is I will actually, in the cost of living, do 3 sections of it, meaning cost of living if I'm Kim K, cost of living if I'm on a budget, and cost of living if I'm kind of in the middle. Because weirdly enough, you actually tend to go through this process as an immigrant, as somebody who moves. A lot of us start off kind of a little Kim K-ish because the stuff is good, the food is good, the restaurants are good, and it's actually all right because I kind of think you need to go through that period of you did all the stuff. You will absolutely get over it by year 2, and then your cost of living changes. And then after you've kind of gotten to that middle part, you start to get to know people, more locals, more local pricing. You actually move to the third, cost of living. So cost of living isn't kind of a one thing. It's a little bit of a wave. And that's why the concepts that I'm going to talk about are also important. You know, when you're doing your budget, when you're thinking about your budget, what are you basing it on? And that's actually it. So I just want to share with you that's what I'm going to be doing. So questions for me. Give it to me.
I love that. I love that you have 3 tiers. I think this is the first that I'm hearing it, but it makes sense because I think I've been through that first phase of, oh, everything's super inexpensive compared to, where I came from. And then the second is, all right, I'm still indulging in going out. I'm going to say that's probably the most expensive part of Mexico because especially here, and I'm sure in Oaxaca, the same. They're just places that are just so cool, right? And so when people come, you want to show them all the things and you want to bring them to the vineyards and the rooftops and all the things. But then eventually it's like cha-ching. And then when you do meet the locals and they frown and make faces at you,
they do.
you simply, you're like, oh, this was only $50. And to them, it's a lot. And then you start becoming more conscious of what you're doing and in a way, and why you moved to Mexico potentially, right? A big part of why we moved to Mexico is because of the economics of things. Whether you have it or you don't, we still kind of made that move to Mexico because of the economics of whatever it is that you want to spend or can spend, whether you have a lot and you're just like, oh, I can get a much, much bigger house, or I'm on a fixed income. So I think that it's very important to create that awareness for people because I know I did it. I remember having this conversation with a long-term resident. And I remember I said, oh, I can't get over the cost of someone to work in my house all day. And she thought that it was too much. And I remember I had just come from Florida and I said, well, it would cost me the buy. She said, well, you got to stop thinking about Florida. So yeah, those are good points. I love
very,
that.
very important because that's literally what happened with me. I mean, I was bankrolling people basically when I first got here, my people cleaning my house were happy to see me. Like, hey, Suki, lots of joy. And I understand now that I get it. I'm like, oh, I'd have been joyful too. I mean, you could have worked for me once a week. And, and actually I remember I started talking to some other Mexican women and they were like, as foreigners, when they talk about us and the economy, it's sometimes the same people don't want to go work for them because we don't quite understand, some of the costs. So even now, if I don't understand the cost, I don't even care what it is. Like if it's something where I'm hearing the cost for the first time, I'm always like, oh, carísimo. And I have no idea if it's carísimo or not. I just say it because I'm like, I just want to set the tone here for you might be haggling. And I look at your face as I say it, because if you look at me like, seriously, then I'm like, okay, I'm wilding out. But if you look at me like, oh, you got me, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna haggle, So if I don't know the price of anything, I just start with the carísimo and then I watch the face carefully. And sometimes like taxis, I do it all the time. I'm like, what?
Me too. I need to know, what does that word mean? Calissimo is like for real?
Carísimo. Oh, like, oh my God, that's really, really expensive.
Okay.
So Paro is like expensive, but carísimo is like gigantically expensive, So
I love it.
I already know I'm wilding out. So look at me and they're like, what is she doing? I get into the taxi.
You have to text Suki, be like, what's that word again?
But you gotta give it with the accent. So you gotta do the whole thing for them. Like, they go into the taxi and I'm like, hey, how much is the taxi? And they're like 120. I'm like, wow, carísimo, ¿no? And I'm like, no, normalmente es 100 pesos porque eso 100. And I start talking all kinds of stuff. I'm not even telling you grammar. Okay, so my grammar, it's just going fast. So I'm not telling you it's good, but we get to that point where they're like, okay, either she's crazy or I just don't want to deal with all this stuff. And they're like, okay. 10 pesos. Okay. I'm like, all right.
That's so funny. I love that.
120 to 10. That's really good.
No, it's 120 to like 100. So like
100. Let's
Yeah,
see.
because I mean, I get inflation, so I'm not telling you no, I pay gas prices like everybody else. But I mean, I was like, come on, that's not serious. So I let them know that I know what the prices are.
Right,
And my
right,
standard statement is, oh my gosh, that's so much money. Normally I pay this. Sometimes I even tell them normally I pay something less than I pay just to see, if that's gonna fly. And then when they're offended and they're like, oh my God, well, who would let you do that? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm wilding out. And it's okay, someplace in the middle. So as I'm saying, when we talk about cost of living, it's actually a little bit of cost of doing living too,
true.
because
Very true.
you can live in a certain way and you can continue paying that money for
Right.
in perpetuity. So part of your cost of living is how do you continue to find out what's the real baseline?
Right,
We're going to make this move for real,
right,
make the move for real.
right.
So I have a question. So since Oaxaca is so popular, like immensely popular, it's like I think San Miguel de Allende and Oaxaca are pretty much equivalent as far as like popularity of destinations. What are some highlights as far as visiting Oaxaca and that people could anticipate? Aside from the food, we already know the food, so don't mention the food.
Okay, we want to talk about the food. Okay, no food. I would say the places. So that's actually this first thing that I ask people before they come to me is, what are you kind of into? And then that's when I'll create the itinerary. So I have a guest coming. Interestingly enough, I met her 3 years ago in Panama, and we became like Facebook friends, and we literally haven't talked since. And then a month ago, she's like, "I'm coming to Oaxaca. I've been seeing your Facebook. Send me the link to your place." And her husband, they love museums. So I basically did a museum itinerary for it. And it's actually beautiful. So the museums, people don't normally go to them here. First of all, they're beautiful. They're like going back in time or something. Like you go in and some of them are outside in courtyards. You're outside and it's blazing hot. You walk into the museum and it's like 70 degrees. It just feels good. A good number of them are free, and they have like little tours that you can ask the people to do for you. We have the Jaguar Zoo that almost no one knows about, but I love the Jaguar Zoo. It is so nice. It's a sanctuary. It's the only sanctuary in Mexico for jaguars. So sometimes people will get a jaguar as a pet. Like, what happened there, right? We won't even go there. And at some point they realize this is actually not a cat. This is a jaguar. And then they need to make a phone call. And so they call the Jaguar Zoo and they go get them. And they basically put them in this conservatory until they teach them how to go back into the wild. And so they take you on the tour and you see all of the different animals in the sanctuary and all of that. And it's like 120 pesos for the tour and everything. So it's a little bit of a no-brainer. Hervor de Agua is beautiful. I love it. It's so cool, the waters. Just be warned, going down the stairs, you actually have to come back up too. So just FYI, as you count in that time, it's 30 minutes later, just reflect, that's 30 minutes back up. So at some point, there's nothing wrong with tapping out and being like, okay, I'm ready to turn right here. I saw what I need to see. Something people don't know about, we have these caves called Grutas de Sebastian. Love it. It's a town 2 hours away. The caves are like these underground caves that I can't remember which. So it was the conquistadors were here and they wanted to go take over the town. So the people went and hid in the caves and actually almost created like a city inside the caves. So the caves still exist. So they have all the stuff there. So you go into the town and they have a whole 6-point itinerary that you can do. That you can see the old cemetery. So you can actually spend the day in the town going to the different points. There's 2 parts to the cave. You can just do the cave itself, or you can actually go down to the springs that are also inside the cave. So it's a whole thing. Not good if you're claustrophobic, because I'm not gonna lie, at one point you're in there and the stuff is a little low and the kid's talking to you about people have been lost before, and you're like, and he's laughing and you're like, I'm not laughing, like, I need to get home to my family, but I'm here, right? So we made it. I went with my kids just in case the family got lost. We had gotten lost together. But they have guides there. And again, I want to tell you, cost-wise, about 200 pesos, give or take, like a person. So there's so much to do in Oaxaca that's not like very, very expensive, but very cultural, very almost like it takes you to another world. And if I'm going to talk about my favorite thing, which is not even a tour, but the Temezcal is like my thing. I I'm like faithful about it. So I go to a specific Temezcal that is there's Zapotec and Afro descendants. So when you go in, you actually see like, so they have a picture of mother. So it's kind of like African Mother Mary type is basically what they have on their wall. And the whole concept is it's through the womb that you're going to give rebirth. And from the moment you walk in, all the stuff is happening, and you walk out and you're like a new person. The woman who's there, she got some kind of thing going on. Like I'll walk in and I'll be like, she's like, hey Suki, how you doing? I'm like, oh, everything's fine. Da-da. She's like, no, you're feeling duh, 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 duh. This is, you're having a problem with this, that, that. I'm like, oh, actually, yeah. We end up crying. We're hugging each other. She's holding me. She's like, I'm going to carry you. I'm like, please, I need someone to carry me. I mean, it's a whole thing. And then I walk out of there and I'm ready to take on the world. So I send my guests to it. I don't exactly explain the whole thing because it's a little bit weird to explain to people. They're going to be throwing water on you and you have these herbs all in your hair and stuff. So I'm like, you're going to feel good after. So I think the thing about Oaxaca, especially if you've been here for a little while, you get past the surface experiences that everybody does, Monte Alban, Mitla, all of that. And when you start getting into like the people experiences, that's what makes Oaxaca really, really special, because a lot of what goes on today is still their livelihoods. They're not doing this for you because they're a tourist. Like even the Temezcal I go to, when I go there, all the cars there are Mexican license plates. So some tourists go, but for the most part, it's actually like other Mexican people that go to it. So I try to focus on things that, I don't have kind of a rule of thumb. If I see a Mexican person walking down the street, I'm like, oh, okay, that's going to work. If I don't see anybody, I'm like, that means it's not for me. So I look to see what they're doing, got their stamp of approval. I'm like, no problem. So that's what I would say people don't know probably about Oaxaca. It can cater to the type of person that you are. If you're more adventurer, lots of hiking trails, like tons of those. If you're more, I just want to relax and spa-like, there are tons of those. Back in my Kim K days, I used to do this. I used to do this spa where they like take out what are those things in your legs? The little cotton candy things. So I used to do that every week. So unfortunately, I know all the spa stuff because, I got here and I had a moment. I'm over it now. But, there's the spas, the natural spas, the just very, very natural healing. A lot of it is very integrated. So even as you're going to acupuncture, she's putting her hands on you like intentionally, and everyone kind of speaks and deals with each other in a way that's very open to spirituality as well as what they're doing to you, for you, I should say. So that is my great land of Oaxaca.
We'll be there in March. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait. Like you just like sold it even more for me. Not that I needed selling, but it was like, okay, before I get there, I'll reach out to you.
Yes, the Temescal experience sounds amazing. And the I want to say hot springs. That was my question. Are they hot springs or is it just kind of like?
They're definitely cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds amazing too.
Yeah, around March, it's actually going to be warmer. So that's good. So if you go kind of around 10, 11, then it's a great time. And it's really good. Actually, to be honest, once you get in, the water is just, like it feels healing. So even though it's a little bit cooler, you're actually all right.
I love it. Well,
thank you so much.
That was a lot. This like extra. Thank you.
But this gives everybody a taste of what they could experience in, getting to know you, what you offer, where you're located, and how you could curate their experience if they choose to visit Oaxaca and give them more of what they are seeking, aligning with their spirits. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes. Always a pleasure to chat with you, Suki. I always learn something new every time. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys doing this. I think this is actually really, really important. The next time somebody asks me a question, I'm just going to send them the replay link. I'm like, here, there you go.
Yes, and the link.
There's the link, and then after that, we talk, get to the details. But I think this is really important for people to really get a good sense from people who've been here at different stages about, is this right for me? And, kind of one of the things I talked to you about, your place, I truly believe people should kind of hop cities a little bit, 3 weeks
too.
there, 3 weeks there,
Mhm.
get a sense for how it feels to you.
I
Oaxaca
Right.
feels great to me, but you could come through and be like, look at this sidewalk. Like, what's the deal? Like,
Yeah.
why
And
aren't you?
vice versa, because I've had clients who came here and went to Oaxaca. They were undecided about where they were going to do their residency. They were like, I think I'm going to come and do it in San Miguel. And they ended up going back to Oaxaca because it was just a better fit for them. So
Yeah.
I think it's great advice.
Yes. All
Thank
right.
you
Well,
so
this was
much,
fantastic, ladies.
Suki.
Nice to have
Thank
a nice
you.
afternoon chat with you all. This is
Yes.
nice. And I look
Thank
forward to
you.
the conference. So thank you for inviting me.
Likewise, likewise. So I dropped the link in the chat for anyone who's watching this on the replay. And any questions, you can reach out to us at hello@movetomexicoconference.com. And you can also find us on Google. If you type in Move to Mexico Conference, Hey Summit, you can find us there, but the link is here. But either way, we're here. We're excited to bring this and all the information that will come along with it. So thanks, Suki. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
hang tight.